All right, good morning. Good morning, good morning. It is 10 a.m. on the West Coast. It is 1 p.m. on the East Coast. I am getting set up here. We have a Zoom link going and we are on Facebook. So I just want to make sure you can see me. Let's get this rocking and rolling. I am so excited about today, you guys. This is going to be awesome. I am really happy to share with you the 4-step framework that we have created and how it applies to being a landlord. So let's just do some technical checks. Give me some likes if you're there, some love, some comments, some shares. This is always interesting when you're going live. So any of the support, the like, the love, that all makes me a little bit more comfortable. As many of you know, I am all about doing presentations live in front of folks. And right now, there are no folks for me to do a presentation in front of. So we are doing the best we can with what we've got. I have my partner, my other half, my other whole, I guess, Drew Davis, is helping me out with questions. So if you have comments, put them in the chat box below. If you're on the webinar, you can put it in the chat box. Wherever you are watching from, get your comments to me. How are we looking, Drew? All right, everything is going great. All right, so let's get started. So I want to give you guys a little bit of introduction to who I am, because some of you know me, some of you don't know me. You know Drew, you might not know Drew, either way. So Drew and I have been married for 10 years this year, but we have been investing in real estate together since 2009. Right? So in 2009, we were about to take that next step together and get married and get engaged. And I wanted to be the strong, independent woman, right? And I wanted to buy my own house before we got married. So I did that. And what happened? That turned his house that we were living in at the time into an accidental rental. Anybody else have these second homes that just happen to fall into being a landlord? Well, at the time we couldn't sell it and we had no other choice but to rent it out. That first experience for us for renting it out was painful. I mean, it was painful. We were talking about like money going out the door. Not only were we in Phoenix in the summertime, and so it's really hot when Drew would have to drive 45 minutes each way to show the property to prospective tenants. We were in the middle of a crash, and Drew still thought, and I did too, that you should be able to charge your mortgage plus a couple hundred extra bucks. And that is how you were going to become this massively wealthy landlord. Needless to say, that was not the case. We were overcharging our rent by hundreds of dollars from what the market was allowing. Right? And we lost well over $10,000 in just an empty house. Is there anyone else out there that's had any kind of experience like this where you're just paying for an empty house to just sit there and not know how to get somebody in there to pay? That's when Drew and I started to take education on real estate investing, right? And how do you become a landlord? What are the things that you can do to build massive wealth? And so Drew and I have been on this journey for now since 2009. We're in 2020, 11 years. And we have learned so much. Not only have we been able to maintain a rental portfolio for this long of a duration, but through the course of our real estate investing career, we have both left our corporate America jobs that were well paying. We have been out of those corporate jobs since, for me, 2014 and Drew 2016. And in the midst of it, we've had 3 children who are all beautiful, beautiful boys. You see them all over our Facebook page. And we have become masters at life design. Life design is all about making sure you're actually doing what it is that you want to do. And this applies whether you're talking about rental properties or you're talking about just your everyday life. So I want to share this framework with you, and you've seen the picture of it. If you're here watching, you've seen it already, but I'm going to share it once again. So here is the 4-step framework for optimization, right? We're going to have the first step is identification. The second step is automation. The third step is delegation. And the last step is implementation, right? You have to implement. We are, as everybody is aware, we're in unprecedented times right now. The beautiful part about this unprecedented time is that you have time. How many of us in the last month or in the last 6 months have said, if I could just get the world to stop for 5 minutes, I could get so much done. Or if I could get an extra day where the whole world stops and I can do something, then I can be so much more productive, right? I know we've said it. Here is the opportunity. We are in a time where everything has stopped, and we have the time to work on our systems and optimize every part of our life. So we're going to talk about rental properties, right? We're going to talk about landlording. So I'm going to introduce you guys to this circle. It's called the Wheel of Life. We got it from Darren Hardy, and I know this probably looks backwards to you. It says rentals. What it is essentially, think about a wheel. Think about a wheel on a bicycle, right? And there's tons of spokes, and each spoke represents a different part of your rental property business, right? Rental property business is not just owning a property. That's not it. There are so many different things that go into it. So each one of these is a spoke. And so we'll say, like, one of them, this says property management. We have property marketing. We have accounting, asset protection, continuing education, operations, the day-to-day operations of it, property disposition and property acquisition, right? So these are the different facets of your rental property business, and you're going to need to optimize each one of them. So what I'm showing you is going to apply to each spoke. And then it's going also to apply to every other wheel in your life, and you can break it down into spokes. So there are 2 types of people in this world. One of them, well, I'm sure there are multiple more than this, but in this instance, there are the people like me who are very big picture thinkers. We love big pictures. We're visionary. We like to see just big chunks, and we can connect the dots. We know how it all works together. We don't necessarily know the details, but we know how it all works together. We can see it. There are other people that love the details and that love to get in there and understand every single detail. Luckily, Drew is all about the details, and so we work really well together. But we still have to be able to come together and do this exercise, even if it's painful for one or both of us, right? And so I'm here to show you how to make this process not painful and to make it so that you can do it even if you are like me and like big picture items and don't like spending time on details. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. And again, please like this video, comment on this video, share your love. I appreciate it a lot. And then if you stay to the end, I'm going to hook you guys up. I'm going to hook you guys up with the slides that we're about to go through so that you can take this action beyond today, and you can just sit back and listen to what I am saying. And then I'm also going to hook you up with our process map for rental properties. So let me get us sharing the screen. All right, can we see my screen? Hey Drew, how are we looking? Can you see my screen?
You look good. I see lots of likes, lots of love coming in through the screen. We're a little bit behind you. So it looks like you're still setting up over there. And now it looks like we're switching over to screen share.
All right, fantastic. All right, so give me 1 second. Let me get to the beginning of this presentation. We are going to go through each one of the steps of the framework right now. All right, so right now, the only spoke that we're gonna be talking about is your property management, right? So we're going to start, you wanna identify the spoke. The spoke is property management, and the starting point and the end point. Before you can identify any of the stuff in the middle and optimize, you need to know where you're starting and where you're ending. So for this webinar, we are going to start when a tenant moves in, and then when a tenant moves out will be our end point. During the course of their stay, there are two main areas where we need to focus. One is rent collection, and the other is maintenance requests and maintenance issues. Now, each one of these you're going to break down, and it's a lot more than just, hey, I own a rental property, there's 4 things to do, and I am set. It's not quite that easy. So once you identify the big picture pieces, now you want to say, okay, step 1 is move in. Then the next thing, keep going, move in, and then rent, and then maintenance, and then move out. And then if you need to take a break because you're a big picture type person, that's okay, take a break. Then when you come back to this, just break it down. Okay, let's talk about move-in. What is included in a move-in, right? And this list that I've put together is not going to be all encompassing. It's going to be as many examples as I thought of for our presentation yesterday, but I'm sure based on your business and what you do, there might be things missing, whether it's things that are missing from my list or that I have on my list that you don't do in your business. Feel free to take any of these and implement them in your business. It's all love, guys. So we're gonna have the date of the move. When are they moving in? Your internal turnover spreadsheet. You wanna always have an internal turnover spreadsheet, right? You wanna know where the scuffs are in the wall or the holes in the wall. You wanna know the condition of your property before you put somebody in. Not necessarily changing those things, but that you're documenting them for your records and you're not relying on the next person. You have your key exchange. How are you going to exchange your keys with your new tenant? What about the move-in form, right? You now want to give them an opportunity to note down any of the imperfections in the place they're moving into, right? So then the rent receipt, also, how are you going to send them a receipt for the rent that they pay you in order to get the keys? For us, when somebody gets the keys is when they pay that first month's rent. So you have your security deposit before the move-in, and then they're going to give us the rent when they move in. And then what about exchanging information with them? What about your parking spot? What about mailbox? What about the community guidelines? You know, do they need to have a gate code or a clicker for the gate or the community pool, etc.? Like, we need to make sure that all of these are encompassed, right? So after the move-in, it comes to rent collection. Now we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to break down rent collection. What are the details of rent collection, right? Your due date. When are you going to have rent due? We have tenants that have had rent due on the 1st and others that have had rents due on the 5th. What you choose for your due date is up to you and your business. What are your accepted forms of payment? Anything that I share with you guys is just from our experience. It's not something that has to be true for you, but this is our experience. What are your accepted forms of payment? We don't accept just regular personal checks in the mail or cash in the mail. That's just not acceptable for us. But what is it for you? You have to identify those so that you can instruct your tenants. What about rent reminders? I have a funny story about rent reminders. Okay, so Drew and I had been in the business for 8 years or so. We've had a lot of great tenants that just stick around for a long time. I mean, we're really good landlords, which is awesome, but they're really good tenants as well. We chose the right tenants. And we still had a couple that were a little less than perfect on paying their rent on time. So what did we do? We decided, you know what could make our life a little bit easier? Well, why not just give them a rent reminder? And the conversation went like this. Well, why do we need to give a rent reminder? Everybody knows their rent is due on the 1st. Well, that's not true if you're not paying your rent on the 1st, right? You might know it's due then, but you might forget. Other things happen in lives where your focus moves from the bill you have to pay on the 1st to an urgent need that you have to take care of in the home or in your immediate circle, right? So then the thought was, hey, what about Chase? What about Wells Fargo? What about Citibank, Discover, all the big banks and mortgage companies and everybody that you owe money to at any point in time? They generally send you an email that says, hey, your payment date is approaching, or hey, your mortgage is due in a week, or hey, you need to make sure you don't forget this payment. So we implemented the same thing for our tenants. We said, hey, here is a reminder that your rent is due. And it didn't matter if they were a good paying tenant or not, we just sent it out to everybody. And what we've seen is an increase in people paying rent and also being proactive if they're going to be late. Also, you need to identify what your grace period is, right? If somebody doesn't pay on the 1st, are they automatically, are they automatically in late fees, or is there a grace period? And then when are you going to send your 5-day notice of non-payment, right? This is a choice for you. And it can be hard if you have a heart and you are working with tenants and there's tough situations going on, and so you need to have a system and a process around when you are going to distribute and how you're going to distribute your 5-day notice of non-payment. So moving on to maintenance. The key things in maintenance are your inspections. How often are you going to inspect your property? Tenant requested repairs. How are your tenants going to communicate with you when a repair is needed? An HOA or a city requested repair. And this could be something like weeds, or it could be, hey, you need to paint your house, right? And then there's owner requested repairs. How are you going to handle all of these different maintenance items that are always going to come up over the course of a year? And lastly, the last section we're going to talk about is the move out. So for move out, the things that you need to consider in this process are going to be the date of the move. When are they moving out? Do you have a tenant that's giving you a 2-week notice, a 1-day notice, a 30-day notice, a 60-day notice? They're all treated differently. When are you going to turn your marketing engine on? Do you wait until that tenant is out of the property before you're going to start marketing it for the next tenant? Or are you going to do like what Drew and I do? As soon as we receive notice, as long as it's within that 30 days and not 60 days or later, we're going to turn our marketing engine on right away and start getting the next tenant lined up. You need to give them a move out form. Let them document any blemishes in your property. How are you going to exchange keys with the tenant? Are you just going to have them put it in the lockbox on their way out, or are you going to be over there collecting those keys? Then you need to do your internal turnover sheet that is the same sheet you did on the move-in. And then you need to return your security deposit for that tenant if they had a security deposit and if they get it back. And either way, you're supposed to give them a ledger if you are deducting anything from their security deposit. So how are you going to handle this? So now we've gone through the identification phase. We have completed step 1 here. The first part of identification is saying we're going to talk about rental property ownership and management, and these are the areas, and we've broken it down. So now we're going to talk about automation. Now that you have created this map, you essentially have a map from when somebody moves in all the way to when they move out. And if you plug each one of these bullet points into that process map, now you want to identify what out of here can be done by a system. Let me repeat automation. Automation is something that you use a tool to complete. It happens automatically. You don't have to do anything for it. So for instance, I'm going to show you out of here some examples of automation and what you can do. So as I look at this list from data move all the way down to parking and mailbox and community guidelines, date of move down to key exchange are not automatic. There's nothing I can really do or in any system I can really have that does those things for me automatically. But move-in form, I can have sent to the person automatically. I can give them a rent receipt automatically. I can provide the guidelines and the information about the parking and the mailbox and the pools and all of that. I can provide that automatically through use of email automation or text messages or voice messages to your tenants. Moving on, rent collection, due date, accepted forms of payment, and rent reminders can all be automatic, right? So you can provide this information to your tenants automatically. And then maintenance requests. For the tenant requested repair, for the HOA and city requested repair, for the owner requested repairs. At another time, if you guys are interested in this and you feel like this is good information and it would be helpful for you, I'm happy to go into what our tenant request repair looks like and how we automate that. So just let me know, make sure you put something in the comments to let us know that you want to go deeper into that or any other part of this, and we will get back on and do this again. Okay, so move out, your move out form, your internal turnover, and then your return of your security deposit. Moving on, delegation. So now we've got to the point where we have completed step 1, identification, and step 2, automation. Now we're moving on to delegation. Delegation is scary. It is straight up scary. And it's expensive, right? It costs us a lot of money, right? Especially as we're getting started. And I'm here to tell you that it does not. It might feel that way as you get going, but the value that you receive if you delegate appropriately is going to be high in excess of the cost that you pay. So for move in, what are things that can be delegated, right? Delegated means that you're going to hire somebody else or some other company to do the task for you. I'm going to give you a little hack here. Hiring a company that already specializes in the task that you want completed is going to be less expensive financially, and they're going to be up and running quicker than if you hire a generalist or if you look for one person that can do this for you. So for delegation, the date of move, you can have somebody else following up with your tenants or tenant prospect to figure out when the date of the move is. That can go there to your property, they can complete the internal turnover spreadsheet, they can take the photos for you, they can exchange keys with your tenant. There's a lot of benefit in having face-to-face conversations with tenants, no doubt. But that goes the same for anybody, right? The reason I want to communicate with you over video is because there's so much value that we get when we communicate face-to-face. But that doesn't mean you have to be the face of your company. You need to train somebody or ask somebody else who is trained to talk to tenants to go and do it. But that doesn't mean, but you don't have to be the one. And that's what I want to get across to you today, is that you can choose which pieces of this whole puzzle you want to take on and which ones you want to hire out. We're just simply showing you the different ideas of which options can be delegated, right? You can have somebody do the key exchange. The next one is rent collection. Delegation can be accepted forms of payment, right? If you're going to have them sending your rent money in the mailbox or in the mail, then you can have somebody else go picking up the mail from your mailbox. If you're going to go and collect it face to face or person to person, you can have somebody else go do that for you. Same with 5-day notices of non-payment, right? How are you going to get those notices out? Every county is different. What I say is specific to our experience, right? But you're going to have the certified mail. You're going to need to serve the tenant or whoever is there with a notice that they need to pay. So are you going to do that? Drew and I have taken trips at the beginning of months before, right? A lot of us do. We don't think about, oh, well, rents are due on the 1st, and if somebody doesn't pay, I'm going to have to go and give a 5-day notice, so I shouldn't go on vacation. That's not how our thought process works. It is, who else can go and do this on my behalf if I'm not able to or if I don't want to? The next one, maintenance. Who's going to go do your inspections for you? You can delegate this. You can also delegate the HOA and the city requested repairs. You know, as mail comes in, you can have somebody else opening that mail, and same with email, and then requesting the repairs and putting the steps in place to get those repairs handled. And the last one is move out. So these are the 3 that are in the move out section where you can delegate it to somebody else. The date of the move, turning the marketing engine on and getting your marketing going, and the key exchange. Of course, you could have somebody return the security deposit if you wanted them to drive it to them. Otherwise, you can just send it through your bank account. Okay, so we've covered a ton of information so far. We have gone through 3 of the 4 steps, right? We've identified, we've automated, and now we've identified what can be delegated. So now it's your turn for implementation. Implementation is something that is a challenge to demonstrate on a webinar like this. How am I going to implement what we've talked about for your business when I don't know your business and my business is already set up? So how am I going to implement it? We're happy to help you out, but you got to write this stuff down that makes sense for your business. And so we can get back on here another time and go over the tools, the resources we have, and we can brainstorm some of the ideas. And like I said, I'm going to give you guys a copy of these slides. So you're going to have all these slides. You can go through them. I ask that you think about your business and whether you have 0 rentals and you're just getting into the landlording game, or you have 100 rentals and you're managing them yourself, or you're managing your property management. Go through these same steps and identify what you can do to optimize so that you can get more free time back in your day, and so that your day is consistent with the things that you want to accomplish, right? The other amazing thing that I'm going to give you guys, I had to beg Drew to let us just give this away. So hold on, I'm going to show it to you. Okay, so we have spent so much time. As you can imagine, this whole process takes forever. It feels like, you know, to somebody like me who likes big picture type ideas. So we have come up with our own process map for property management. Okay, so this whole thing is our property management process map. It goes through all the steps that we have talked about here today. And you can see exactly what we choose to do, because there's more questions, right? Each one of these, we drilled down from big picture items of property management to the 4 different sections, right? And then within each section, here are some bullet points, right? But then within here, you have to break this down even more. So we're going to give this to you. We're going to give this to you for free for staying on this webinar with me. And I really, really appreciate you guys. I would love to hear the feedback. Drew, are there any questions that I should answer on the slide before I give them the process map?
A lot of positive feedback. There was a great question that came in that was asking about how you handle rent increases, how often and how much.
Awesome question. I love my business owners out there that are doing this for business. I mean, we're here to help people, but at the same time, you are not here to carry everybody on your back. So how do we handle rent increases? How frequently, how much? You know what? It's going to depend. And everybody gets sick of hearing it's going to depend, but it's going to depend on your market, right? And what is going on in your market. When Drew and I were starting back in 2009, right? About 2009 to about 2012, we didn't do many rent increases. Why not? Because the market was holding steady with rent. Rents were not going up. So if we would have gone to somebody who was paying $8.95 for rent and said, hey, you need to pay us $9.50, they could look around and they could say, hey, well, I'm going to move and I'm going to pay $8.95 down the street because that's what they charge. So market rent shows it's $8.95. So if the market shows that you are at market rent and there is no reason why they should pay more, then there's not much you do for rent increases. Now, we've got creative on how we increase our rents without needing or without having to be completely upgraded and remodeled homes. So that we'll have to save for another time. But if somebody's been in your property a year and your market rent is still the same as what they're paying, either don't increase the rent, that's option one. Option two is increase it nominally. And if there's pushback, then you can say, do I want to lose this tenant over $15 a month or over $25 a month, or do I want to let them stay? So that's up to you. Now, on the other hand, we've had tenants that when we purchased the property were severely under market rent. If you're a real estate investor buying wholesale properties where tenants are in place, then I am sure you have come across this. They're paying severely under market rent, and to go into somebody's house who has been paying $8.95 and say, hey, it's supposed to be $13.95, start paying me $13.95 next month, you're going to lose your tenants. Most likely you're going to lose your tenants. But what we've done is we've worked with our tenants and we've said, look, what can you afford? Your house is under market rent, and this is what you should be paying. We're not going to make you pay that much yet, but what can you afford? So get buy-in from your tenant. And then also come up with a plan where it's a shorter time frame for leases before you increase the rent, right? So we did like, okay, we need to go up $100 a month. All right, we're going to do that. Now we're going to only extend you for 6 months. And then in 6 months, we're going to revisit this and we're going to add another $50 a month. And so you come up with a plan to get them on track without just doing a sharp increase that's going to lead to turnover. Anything else?
Yeah, we actually had a current events question come in, and they were asking, how are you handling tenants with rent challenges due to loss of work related to current events in the world?
All right, so what is happening in the world is crazy, and it is impacting people, not only on the health side, but on the business side as well, on the financial side. And honestly, I think that we're going to see a lot of financial impact from what's going on for a longer period of time. So it's not going to be just this month or next month. What are Drew and I doing? So Drew and I I'm sharing again our experience and what our choices are, and what we're doing might not resonate well with you, or vice versa, might not apply in your market, etc. So what we're doing is we still expect rent to come in, right? We're still doing everything we can to pay our mortgage. And most people right now want to still keep up on their bills. There are programs out there in the event you are unable to pay your rent or pay your mortgage where you can go apply for assistance. So that would be one thing that the individual can do. So Drew and I are still expecting rent to come in as scheduled, right? Now, we all know that it's possible that that's not going to be the case for a lot of people. So we had a number of people call us yesterday because rents were due yesterday, that said, hey, what do I do if banks are closed? Because our tenants deposit money directly into our account at the bank. So you give them alternative options, and that's what we're doing. We're opening up our flexibility with how they pay us rent, right? So they can go into a bank that has a drive-through window that's still open and operating. And here in Arizona, there are still a lot of banks that are doing that. We also are allowing them to do electronic transfers to our account. And if they need us to come and pick it up, they can put it outside and we can have somebody else go pick it up and put it in our bank account on their behalf. So we are just starting to open it up. We're also being more flexible when it comes to partial payments, right? So we aren't waiving our late fees as of yet. You could do that if it's going to help somebody and you feel like it's the right thing to do. But we are breaking our payments up if we need to and letting somebody pay weekly or bi-weekly. And then if they're doing that, then we just incorporate the late fees in those payment amounts and then they pay then. So, but we've also reached out to everybody. We reached out to all our tenants yesterday and the day before and talked to them. And we've had a lot of positive responses back saying that it's no problem. They've got their rent in and they were able to work around the hurdles that everybody is really facing. Anything else?
That's a great one. We got one more coming in that is asking about comparing if you're buying a new property, if there's a tenant already there, how do you qualify that tenant as opposed to putting a brand new tenant in your new property?
Wonderful question. Great question. So when you are buying a property with a tenant in place, you're still going to go through the same steps of purchasing a property as if it were vacant, right? So you're going to still be able to do your inspections. Now, if you are buying on the wholesale market, which we can also have a whole other call if you guys want about this for wholesaling. If you're buying on the wholesale market and inspection periods are essentially non-existent, you can still get all the information that that previous owner or the seller has about that tenant. They can provide you with the person's application. They can provide you with their lease terms. They can provide you with their rent rolls and the bank account statements to show when rent is coming in and has been coming in. Our experience is that tenants that have been in place a long time, generally when a landlord is selling them, the tenant is used to paying way under market, and the landlord that's selling doesn't want to bring them up to market because he cares or she cares about the tenant and their situation. So if they've been there a long time, you might have that hurdle of getting them up to market rent. If they have not been there a long time, you definitely want to look at the reports that were run and the decision-making criteria that was used when putting them in the property. And also, for Drew and I, whenever we purchase a property with a tenant in place, we look at the rent potential, right? And what it is now versus what it could be, what the costs are going to be to do the turnover if the person moves. And then also what we kind of bake into our purchase price our out-of-pocket costs if we need to evict them and assume the worst, where we have to take our time to evict them and get them out, and then there's this loss of rent. So we include all of that in our negotiations and in our purchasing decisions.
Fantastic. That is a good summary of the questions we've had coming in. Like I said, a lot of positive feedback from everybody.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so next, how do you get the slides? How do you get the slides? And how do you get this? So I'm going to show you. This is a link you want to copy. map.blackbookninjas.com. Drew, will you put that in the chat box, please?
Sure.
map.blackbookninjas.com. So go here. It's gonna have two links at the bottom that you're going to be able to click on. One of them is going to be your blueprint for success, which is this. And one of them is going to be your slides. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time, being with me for these 45 minutes. I know everybody has a lot going on. They have children home, they have spouses home, they're not used to working from home. I appreciate you guys taking the time to join me. Thank you for all the likes, the love, the comments. And I'd love to continue to collaborate with you about other parts of this whole real estate investing world and how we can help you optimize those parts of this world that matter most to you. So make sure you give us your feedback. Make sure you let us know what you want to hear or what you want to talk about. And we will be meeting with you guys again soon. So love you guys. Appreciate you. Share this. You never know what landlords are around. And catch you guys later. Bye.